If your PHT isn't getting better, you need to hear Jane's story. Jane has been a competitive runner for decades, but behind those performances was an ache in the sit bone area, which was progressively getting worse.
We'd been trying all the techniques, the cupping, the massaging, the shockwave therapy, even bought a wee shockwave therapy machine. We'd tried pressure points, massaging.
But nothing was working, and symptoms got a lot worse.
And I wasn't able to even walk forwards. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sit because of the pain. I couldn't do anything basically.
Jane genuinely started wondering whether she'd ever run properly again. And then she found my PHT resources, which completely changed the direction of her recovery. In fact, now she's back to running and starting to believe competitive racing will be back in her future. Not only does Jane share her hardships and epiphanies that will help you with your own rehab, but at the end, I ask her one question that I think everyone needs to hear. Do you have any advice for those who may have chronic or severe PHT, and if they're losing hope, what advice do you have for them? Her answer comes later, but first, let's learn how she got here. Jane, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Would you mind just taking us back before the PHT and what sort of exercise, fitness stuff were you involved in?
Well, sport's always been my life, basically. Even from at school, hockey, running, athletics, you name it, tennis, badminton. But running sort of really became a big part of my life when I moved up north Scotland to marry my husband. At the age of 30, I started taking running a lot more serious and soon enjoyed sort of the success I was very lucky to achieve. Cross country, 10 kilometres, half marathons. But by mid-30s, I'd run sort of a 36 10K and a 36-minute 10K and a 1:19 half marathon. So I was doing really well. And then, about age 54, began to experience more persistent pain, which kept moving around, top of the hamstring, never down the calf, but the top of the hamstring into the glute, sort of under the seat bone area. And I kept trying to run through it, train through it. I just was never performing to my best. I just didn't feel I had any power. And I was beginning to think there's something more than just a niggle here. There's something more going on. And that's when sort of, I guess, I started looking into other options like physios and osteopaths and what exercises or what sort of massage techniques I could use myself.
Would you say it was just a very gradual onset, that it started off with some vague sort of tiredness and then just persisted after that?
Yes, I think so. Because at that point I was still racing. When it was only this year that it got really bad. That was a crunch when I had to stop racing. I realised it was really bad. But at that point it was still running. It was just always there. And I remember saying to my husband, I used to say, I was okay today, or I just wouldn't go away today. There was always something going on. But again, didn't know what it was. Was it piriformis? Was it glute? Was it something more than that? Sciatica? My sciatica rubbing off my piriformis. You sort of began grasping at straws as to what it was and did all the research on the internet and, sort of still wasn't getting anywhere. Went to the physio and she said it was weak glutes. So she gave me exercises to sort of stretch. She gave me some shockwave therapy and that helped a wee bit. But she told me to do some stretches and body weight clams and body weight bridges, which I now realise is a complete waste of time, rolling on a year and a half later. And then I also went to an osteopath and she gave me dry needling. And that worked for a short period. But then I now know why I didn't go on forever. And again, she gave me some exercises and tennis ball, sitting on tennis balls and things like that. So I've come a long way from there, realising that all of that stuff really wasn't any good.
Yeah. You mentioned that more recently things started to flare up. What was happening around that time?
Well, that was, I suppose, I came back and I tried to do the cross country in Gordonston. It was the North District Championships. And I hadn't really been doing many hills because when sort of October, November, I was beginning to feel a bit of pain when I was doing hills. So I was doing mostly flat running. And I was okay with the flat running. There was some pain. I wasn't getting the full push off my legs and I knew that it wasn't right. But anyway, I came and did beginning of December, did the cross country. And although I had a really good run, I couldn't walk at the end of it, and it was extreme pain and had to walk backwards. Then I got the dry needling, and I managed that. And then I didn't do any running until I did the 10 miler. And I did a really good 10 miler. I think I did 72 minutes or something like that. But I hadn't done any running for a while. So whether that was just the rest that got me through that. And then I trained up to get a half marathon in February, which again, I did really well. I think I did 1:33, but maybe I put the mileage up too quickly to get to the half marathon in February, looking back at it. And then that was mid-February, quite a lot of pain, but still running. And then I did a 10K in March, and it was very, very windy at Nairn, extremely windy. I did a 43 something. Again, I wasn't getting the power, and I was sore afterwards. And then April, things just kept getting worse and down and down. And then I knew the crunch, basically, when things were really rock bottom and I was in a lot of trouble, was I did 2 races in April when I was in Cyprus. And the first one, the 45-minute pacer went past me, and I thought, that's never, ever happened in my life before. I'm usually 2 minutes ahead at least. And then the next race, and I finished that, and I couldn't walk afterwards. I had to walk backwards, which seems to be, still is the go-to for me. I love walking backwards. It seems to be something about it. I don't know what. And then I did another 10K in April again, and my husband flew past me, and I thought, this is, something is dreadfully wrong. And when I look at the picture...
Not the husband.
He shouldn't be anywhere near me. Because he's a great runner, but and then I just, when I look at the pictures of me in the race, and I'm in such pain, and you can see I'm struggling running, and my body form is completely all over the place. And at the end of the race, I was in such pain. No matter what I did, I just couldn't get rid of the pain. And at that point, that was it. I just quit racing. So yeah.
Telling your story, it sort of makes me think, when we look at tendons and we think of, okay, where's the tendon capacity? There's symptoms will emerge as soon as like that run or the weekly mileage or speed exceeds that capacity. And what I'm envisioning through that whole story is race per race of like trying to put in a decent effort. Like you're going out hard, you're trying to run, each race followed by a bit of rest, then another race, and more symptomatic. Just makes me think like every attempt, every run is just diminishing the tendon's capacity while you're still pushing the load. So the discrepancy between the load that you're forcing the tendon to do just far outreaches that ever diminishing capacity that it has, because as it becomes more irritated and more symptomatic, often the capacity slowly diminishes. And so the bigger gap you see between load and capacity, the more and more symptomatic it gets. And as you're just working through that timeline of pushing races and symptoms getting worse and worse, pace dropping off, losing power, starting to be in real pain during the run, that's sort of like the visual that I'm sort of painting as you go through that history. Would that make sense? Would that resonate with you?
Yes, because I've learned a lot now after sort of following your course and whatnot. I now know an awful lot about the load and the capacity and recovery. And so, yes, now looking back from what I know now, and I knew nothing then. You thought I knew everything then. So yeah, I completely agree. It was just too much. And I now know that when I'm sort of beginning to get back to running, I know that's much further on, but I need to make sure it's a very controlled progression. And that the load and the capacity are both sort of prepared at the same time. The balance is correct.
When did a diagnosis come about?
That was probably when I was sort of in a lot of pain. So that we're talking sort of end of April. And I wasn't able to even walk forwards. I couldn't do anything, basically. Walking backwards was my go-to, and I must admit I got an awful lot of strange looks walking backwards and everyone else was walking forwards. And the minute I looked at a hill, I went, oh, really, do I have to go up that slight slope? I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit because of the pain. So everything. And so at that point, because we tried what the other physios and osteopaths and all the rest of it had done, we'd been trying all the techniques, the cupping, the massaging, the shockwave therapy, even bought a wee shockwave therapy machine. We'd tried pressure points, massaging, I think every gadget under the sun we had tried.
I've got a list of the modalities that you mentioned here, so let me just run through them. So you sent me shockwave, dry needling, stretching, massage guns, foam roller, KT tape, nerve flossing, ice, and heat as modalities that you have attempted. So yeah, definitely trying to throw a lot at it.
So the one that really worked was the ice and heat, which I now know is just, as all of these are, they're just analgesic, thanks to the knowledge I've learned from you. And that always was, as I've sort of put the thought in, that it's like putting a sticking plaster on a gushing artery. It's not ever going to sort it. It's just momentarily going to ease it for a bit, and then again you're like, oh, where's the ice? Where's the heat again? that plaster's come off. So my husband just did an awful lot of research, because he's great on the internet, fortunately. I'm very lucky that way. And that was when he came across some podcasts that you'd done. And he said, Jane, you need to come over and you need to listen to this. And he said, Brodie is talking about exactly the experiences that you are getting. He's nailing it on the thumb, and I think it's PHT. So we started looking into it. He looked more at your website, and he said, we've got to go for this because there's nothing else. Let's join the course. And that's probably the best thing I've ever done, because I know it's a long journey, but I've learned so much. And where I was, that was the 3rd of May I started, and what's today, the 10th of August. Where I was on the 3rd of May, I would never have thought where I am now. And hopefully in a year's time, I'll be thinking I'm a lot further on from where I am now. But still, I just can't believe the difference that following your expertise and knowledge and understanding of the PHT and the tendons has just brought me on so much. And just that's what am I on, week 14 now?
Mm-hmm. Talk me through like the emotional struggle with, like you say, you got to the point where sitting was painful, walking forwards was painful, sleeping was painful. How did you manage that? Because that's what, far from running and running races and running PBs and all the stuff that you were striving towards, how were you managing that?
I got pretty low, I have to admit. It's really worrying, because you just thought, at one point I just thought nothing is ever working. Even, that when I started doing all your exercises and I was lifting hardly any weights and I couldn't shift the eccentric, because one of the daily exercises that you gave was just trying the band and pushing it back from neutral to extension, to the eccentric extension. And I couldn't even shift it to neutral. Mm-hmm. Everything was just so painful. And I just thought, and at that point I was managing just to sit on the bike a bit, but at one point I was just thinking, I wish I could just take a holiday from all this pain, because it's so sore. And everything I was doing, apart from, unless I was sitting in heat and ice, everything was just so sore. And I just thought, this is never going to get anywhere.
Would you say it got to a point where you generally thought that it wasn't going to get better?
Yeah, I did. But then, I'd listened to a lot of your podcasts, and you've interviewed people who've had PHT, and they have come out the other side. And I kept trying to say to myself, I need to be positive. I need to believe in what you're telling me to do, and to do this loaded, slow, progressive work on the tendon. And I'm telling you, that's the thing that gave me a bit of hope, actually, I should have said. Because I thought, I'm never going to be able to do anything. I better just not do anything. And you said, wrong thing to do. Tendons hate not to do something. They love to be challenged. They love to be worked. They love it to be loaded, slow, progressive loading. And at that point, we've got a small gym here, but it's only got tiny weights in it. So Ian said, right, we're going to join the gym, because we need big machines, we need big weights. And okay, we might not be able to lift them now, but we need to progress slowly to that. Uh-huh. So we joined the gym. And that's when things did begin to get better, because there was something as a purpose for me to do, either the daily maintenance little things I had to do at home, which was basically I had, deadlifts with next to no weight and a few step ups, and then my sort of isometrics, which I love isometrics. Thank you for introducing me to them. So we did that, and then at the gym, we'd go and try and do some heavier strength days, sort of maybe twice a week. And yeah, that's when things began to feel as if, yeah, I'm doing something here that actually is beginning to make a difference. Because what I was lifting when I started to what I'm lifting now, I think I'm now lifting 45 kilograms in a deadlift, and I'm 48 kilograms. And I think
Wow.
I was struggling lifting 20. And in
Can I
squats and
ask?
things.
So you stumbled upon the podcast, well, your husband stumbled upon the podcast. Then you realized I had this online course that sort of guides you through PHT Rehab, and you made a start. There's, I guess, a big hesitation or like sticking point that some people, when they get to the course, is working out their starting point, because everyone's going to be different. Everyone has different sensitivities and access to weights, and their irritability is slightly different. Everyone has a different capacity. And so, what I try to allay in the course is, okay, you need to find your own starting point. These are the principles you can follow. But some people just still get a bit stuck with that and a bit confused with that. How did you go with finding that starting point? Did you have any trouble?
Not too bad. Ian was with me, so I guess we worked on that together. Um, and I knew from what you'd said that the pain must be at less than 3, and then you had to return to baseline the following day. And of course, you stipulated make sure you record everything and any change so that you can monitor if there's soreness the following day, what you've done wrong.
Mhm.
So I guess we did that. We did a lot of the monitoring to find. And I guess we maybe started sort of, would you call it conservative, really quite light. So I guess we started that and then realised actually I'm okay the following day. And the next time we do this exercise, let's put it up a wee bit. But I remember you saying, everyone's different, so I cannot say to you, you must start at this. I think I started at 20 kilograms in total. So I was starting quite low, but I needed that. Make sure, as you've always said, the baseline. Make sure you can return to baseline.
Mhm. So you mentioned you did some lighter loading exercises more frequently at home. So you did some lighter deadlifts, some lighter step ups, and then twice a week doing more of a heavier session. So going into the gym, um, they were with deadlifts, still the same type of exercises, just heavier.
Deadlifts, squats. We were doing the squat machine, and then started doing some static or isometric hip bridges with weights, putting weights on, which again we just sort of been gradually increasing that. And then the quad machine, and then as you'd mentioned, the prone hamstring curl, which we don't have the one where you lie like that, but the one we've got is at an angle, sort of 45-degree angle at the gym. And I couldn't shift that at all. So, and the same with the eccentric hip extension with the band. I wasn't able to move that at first. So that was they were sort of like my tests to go to each time to see if I was getting any, especially the band, if I could, or the cable machine, because there was a cable machine there. So I was using that at times just to see if I could shift it any more with a light weight. So that was sort of my go-to test to see if there was any slight improvement.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't come across that kneeling one, the kneeling prone hamstring curl, too often. So, like you say, it's kind of like you're laying on your stomach, but you're kind of on an incline. And would that be, I guess you'd have to do it with a single leg hamstring curl, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
If you're in that
yeah,
kneeling position.
yes.
You said that straight away you felt better because you had a bit more of a goal, you had a bit more of like an action plan that sort of helped you emotionally, mentally. When did you start seeing some improvements physically? When did you start seeing like improvements in sitting or pain or walking or anything like that?
That came very slowly. The sleeping with a pillow, had a pillow under, or I either slept in my front or a pillow under my legs because the pain was just so sore. The sitting began to get, it's still not perfect, but it got a bit easier over time, a long time. I'd say in the last 4 weeks in particular, it's been getting better. And the sleeping is much better. I don't have to use the pillow quite as much. The walking, I guess the walking came quite quickly. After I started doing sort of the deadlifts and things, it was becoming easier. Hills, walking up hills, it's much slower. But I was able to do that. I was able to go on the bike, so I was able to do a bit of that. A bit of the cross trainer. cross training, so and swimming and aqua jogging. I started when I started on because of the treadmill. I decided that's how I'd introduce my running, and I guess because that was new, I was only trying like the 1 minute. At first, I wasn't managing the 1 minute. In fact, Ian got me to run downhill and try a 1 minute run downhill first. So I did that and I managed to do that. But I guess the aggravation or the sort of the flare ups or sort of irritations was basically me trying to introduce the running, even with 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on. But again, I did a bit of that, then would take a bit of a break, not try it. So I was really slow at introducing the running. And that would only maybe just once a week, trying just a couple of minutes with the interval, 1 minute on, 1 minute walk, 1 minute run, 1 minute, and very, very slow. So I guess we've been trying to introduce that and build that up, and we're managing to do that quite successfully now. We've just been down to Edinburgh, which is sort of almost a 5-hour drive, and although we stopped a lot on the way down for me with the sitting and things, I was really sore when we got down there, really sore. And for the 2 or 3 days that we were down there, I just couldn't shift. We tried a run down there and I wasn't running, I was running with more pain than I would normally where I am now. And it was the same when we came back up. It took me a day or two for just my bottom just to sort of calm down. And then when I tried a run a couple of days after we got back, I thought, oh, things was no pain again, because I was beginning to run at times as with little or no pain. I'd say to Ian, that was only a half today. Oh, I didn't think about pain for a minute or two. So I'm fine. I found that was probably the worst, is when I've been sitting for a really long time, even with short intervals, standing up, walking around a lay-by or whatever, and then getting back in. That it's taken a couple of days to settle with that. And then, of course, the journey back up took a couple of days, and then it's sort of been easing off again since we got back about a week ago, I think.
Yeah, which is understandable. Like, I have a lot of clients that make improvements, they're getting encouraged, they're optimistic, and then they go on a long haul flight or a trip, long car ride, and they're bummed out because they have an increase in symptoms. And I say, like, it's expected. If you're finding sitting is irritating you, and then you have to sit for that long, it's expected. We should just recognize reality. And I sort of remind them that the more you commit to building a really strong base, the better foundation you have, the quicker you actually return back to baseline. Sure, it's painful, and it's painful for 24, 48 hours or even longer, depending on how sensitive the tendon is. But people often surprise themselves at how quickly it bounces back when they really put in the work and put in the dedication. And it's probably not outside the realms of possibility that you're back to running 30 minutes continuous and really getting symptoms under control. And then you have to sit on a plane for 12 hours, and then it's a bit sore after that and you're a bit bummed, but it's only sore for 12 hours. And then you bounce back and you're symptom free the next day. Like, it's that emotional kind of process that everyone kind of needs a bit of a realistic lens.
You do sort of, you get frustrated because you think, I was doing so well, and then why, and then, as you said, sort of a wee bit after, I mean, we came back on the Friday, and then the Saturday we thought we'd go straight into the gym and get on with things. And I think by the Sunday I was sort of more or less beginning to sort of think, oh, I'm running again, sort of like a wee bit before I went away, with pain levels and things. So I'm not going down to Edinburgh for a few weeks, so I can keep moving around.
Can I ask, emotionally speaking, when you were, racing, running fast, running far, doing all the things that you love, having to return to running with 1 minute on, 1 minute off, like that huge discrepancy between what you want to do or what you have done previously to what you're doing now. Where were you mentally? Because some people find it really, really frustrating, but some people are like, look, I'm just happy to be out there. Even if it's just a 30-second jog, I'm okay with that. Where do you place yourself?
It was hard. It was very mixed, because when I was thinking, hey, I've managed to do a minute, but at the same time, or maybe one day it's like, oh, I've done 2 minutes. But at the same time, you're thinking, Jings, I've got an awful long way to go. If I'm only running 2 minutes and I'm doing three lots of 2 minutes, and I used to run for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, without even thinking about it, you sort of think, oh. And then the next time you go and you maybe you saw that you did 3 lots of 2 minutes, you did 4 lots of 2 minutes. You thought, well, I did an extra 2 minutes. So it was trying to sort of always, and that's where recording everything was always really good, because I'd look back and think, well, last time I did it, only did 3 of that. I mean, I did a session the other day, and I said to Ian, I did a bit of an interval because I'm trying to introduce hills and some speed work now. And I said to Ian, I did 2 minutes at such and such a speed. I think it was like 4 minutes 20 I managed to get up to. I did 2 minutes last week at that, and this week I did 3 minutes at 4:20, and I did 1 minute at such and such. So it was only 1 minute increments I was adding. So I was that was motivation. I was coming off going, oh, I did 3 minutes today at such and such a pace, and I was actually feeling as if I was getting somewhere because I was getting some speed, and that brings hope, because I'm thinking, well, I'm getting a wee bit closer to sort of some of the speed. Okay, it might just be for 2 minutes, but at least I'm hitting sort of those 4 minutes, almost 4 minute kilometers, even if it's just for that short, brief spell. Like 14 weeks ago, I couldn't even do 1 minute at 6 kilometer paces, 6 kilometer pace. So yeah, it's always looking back at the records and thinking, well, actually, look what I used to do and look what I'm doing now. And then maybe that's week 14 for me, so add another 14 weeks on. Where might I be in 14 weeks? Because I think the progression is beginning to be a bit faster. That was really slow. The first really hard and really slow. It was only very slow, slight improvements you were seeing, whereas now I'm beginning to see it slightly accelerate, and that's where I need to be careful that I don't jump in with 2 feet.
Of course. Yeah. And I think natural, like when you have such a painful, sensitive tendon, yes, the progressions do need to be very, very small. You'd notice in the progression chart that I have for people in the course, like it is 1 minute progressions, but then when you get further down, it's like 5 to 10 minute jumps, and it's just like you allow yourself a bit more wiggle room once you have a bit more stability, once you have a bit more confidence in the tendon, because a lot of my clients, they're like, man, I can't envision if I'm just going from 3 minutes of running to 4 minutes of running to 5 minutes of running, I can't envision, an hour of running. Like that's going to take me 2 years to progress. And that's when I remind them, like once we have a bit more stability and we have a bit more foundation, that's when we can make bigger jumps in your progressions. And so it encourages people a little bit more.
Yeah, because what I've noticed, and also what you mentioned, was you need to, and it's in some of your YouTubes as well, the importance is having sort of a base foundation, the volume of running. So I've done a lot of like at 6 minute, really slow, but I've built that up to like 30 minutes. It's slow 30, and I've been doing that a couple of times a week. So I'm building my volume up. And then actually yesterday or 2 days ago, I managed 15 kilometers, very slow. But just sort of very gradually building that progression of volume up at a slow pace. And I'm only trying to do one sort of interval, where I'm trying to raise the speed. That's only once a week, where I'm doing those 1 minute increments or slightly longer at a certain pace, but adding another 1 minute at a slightly higher volume, higher speed, I should say. But I've been trying to increase the volume very gradually. Again, I never thought I would get 15 kilometers a month ago. No way.
Yeah. Speaking of little milestones, people might not know this, but as a member of the PHT Blueprint course, you get access to a Facebook community of people just attending this course. And you shared on that community the success you had with moving the hamstring curl machine for the first time. Would you mind retelling that story?
That was an emotional moment. Now I look back, quite an embarrassing moment. Yeah, I've been struggling, as I said earlier, with this leg curl machine. I couldn't shift it at all. Week 8, I couldn't shift it. Week 9, still couldn't. My left leg, because it's not as bad, I was beginning to move it slightly, but my right one just wasn't shifting. And then I think it was about a week. I'd been away in a trek and I came back, so I'd not been on it for about 2 weeks. And I came back and I looked at it because I always look at the machine and think, oh, jinx, right, I'm going to have to try this. And I sort of build up the courage to try it because I know it's not going to move. So I looked at it and I went on and no weight, of course, as usual. And I thought, well, I'll just go on and see if I can shift it even slightly bit, expecting nothing to happen. And it moved. And I looked across at Ian and I just burst into tears. I went, it moved! It moved! And he looked and he went, do it again. So I sort of did it again. And although it was just marginal, but I moved it and it was just like a major breakthrough. And of course I'd burst into tears and I'm looking around going, I'm in this big gym with all these big men, muscly people, and here's this little lady going, oh, I moved it. So that was like a major breakthrough to me because it meant that something was definitely working. Although that would take him, I think this was, a week 11 or something. And actually, the other day, I put a 1.25 kilogram on it, and I managed to move it up a bit. So I started working. I'm only doing sets of 5, but I managed to move it. So yeah, that was just a wonderful moment.
Yeah, and an excellent story. Yep, it's very inspirational.
There is hope.
Yes. After listening to your story, I think Ian had a big part to play in that. You said he was behind the camera. Can he come on and just give me a wave?
Hi, Brodie.
Pleasure meeting you, mate. Yeah. The last question I had written down is, do you have any advice for those who may have like chronic or severe PHT? And if they're losing hope, what advice do you have for them?
My first piece of advice is I'd say don't procrastinate. Don't just try and fix it yourself. You need to get professional help. Like I sought your help, your knowledge, your expertise, how to go about it, all the videos, all the resources you've given me. So don't procrastinate. Get on some kind of sensible, progressive loading program where you can ask for help, get advice. I remember one time, I messaged you, it was quite early on in the course, and I messaged you, I think it was week 1, and I'd looked at the first videos for the first few days of that course. And I messaged you saying, but what about sitting? I can't sit. And you said, just go and see video weight. And I went, oh, there it is. So everything was there for me just to tap into. So get expert advice. You need to get into a gym if possible, or buy, there's now so many weights you can buy for your home and things like that. So get a decent set of weights at home that you can progress with. Don't rush it. Record everything, and that's one thing that you said you must do. Record everything, so that if the following day you have a baseline and it's not returned to your baseline, you can look at your sheet and go, I put that weight up yesterday, that's why I'm sore today. I put it up too much, I need to put it back down, I'm not ready to go up, or anything like that. So you have to record meticulously everything that you do. You mustn't lose hope. Be positive, be dedicated to it. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to go into this, and then you only do it a few days a week. It's like going to a physio, asking for exercises, and then you go back to the physio and he says, well, did you do your exercise every day? No, not really, but I'm no better. Well, you didn't do the exercises. You need to keep progressing with the strength, but lower the reps. Don't expect to put the strength up. Again, what you said, don't put the strength up and manage to do the same reps as you're doing. You must take that down. One thing also that helped me, because I remember I was struggling when I was putting the weights up, I went to one of your videos and it said on the course, and it said, what if you're struggling with the weights? And I went, that's me, because I'm so weak up here. I'm not very big and I'm struggling to lift these weights that are getting heavier and heavier. And you went on about breathing techniques, and you went on about different strategies for lifting weights, whether it was change your grip, and I've bought straps, weightlifting straps I put round, and that has made a huge difference as well. And you need to make sure you're back to baseline. That's really important. If you're not back to baseline the next day, don't do anything. Don't try and increase anything. You need to get that back. So
once again, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, giving us a ton of insights and giving a lot of people a lot of hope. So thanks for coming on and sharing.